All right, welcome back, guys, to Foundation of Programming Day 5. We are going to pick off from where we left yesterday. Before we cut off, I talked about how, I was going to give you guys a box model, kind of like homework, mainly because it was just walking through everything I've already talked about, right? So if you did the assignment, you would see is just creating a border around things and just seeing how the box looks like. But I feel like I kind of beat the dead horse here. I mentioned it multiple times. I displayed it using the inspect tool. The what we are going to do this morning, starting off, or not this morning, I guess this afternoon, is going to be working with Flex, right? Flexbox. Um, and really formatting our boxes, right? We talked about the boxes, but how do we format them, right? And it's going to be the last part for our CSS lecture. Immediately following that, we're going to jump into um, JavaScript. Now, for the box talk, it's going to be more of a code along, and then I'll let you know what you guys can do. But you guys should be seeing something similar. Let's see. You guys should see this. So you see my VS Code and my web browser. I'm assuming yes. It should be my VS Code and the slideshow. Let me go ahead and talk about the assignment itself. So layouts, right? Here we have a little nice snippet. We have a bunch of boxes, stacked a bunch of boxes, different colors and shapes and sizes. Um, so before, when it came to creating your layouts, they would use, I guess, floats, right? When I started learning about HTML and CSS, I never really used this, so I can't really speak too much about it. But the more modern way of doing things is CSS grid and flexbox. People swear on grid. I really haven't used it too much. I really enjoy flexbox, and flexbox is pretty easy to understand. Um, so we'll stick to Flexbox, and if you want to kind of expand on this and you want to look into other ways of formatting, you definitely can, right? But Flexbox is going to be the number one way when organizing your elements, right? Not to get them confused with organizing like your text, because the way that you organize the element, or I guess format an element, is a little bit different when it comes to aligning your text, and you're going to see that pretty quickly. So here is what we were talking about. The assignment for this is going to be in lesson 03 under practice layouts, right? There's no actual README for this one. There's no pre-formatted HTML, so you're gonna have to create this on your own. So instead of practice layouts, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new file, which will be your HTML file. So we'll call this index.html, and we're going to create a new CSS document, which is going to be style.css. And before we get into this, we have to make sure we have a boilerplate of HTML and connect our style CSS to it. So in the HTML file, as we mentioned before, you're going to use the exclamation mark, and it should give you this drop down menu, which will allow you to uh, create a boilerplate, right? The basic skeleton of what your HTML document should look like. For you, Kevin, since you are new here, what you're going to require to also install, so you can do what I'm about to do, is going to be an extension. So in your VS Code, you're going to want to navigate to extensions. It should look like this Tetris block right here. And you are going to type in live server, and it should be this right here. It should be the very first one. It has like 20 some downloads, 20 million downloads, I believe.
Okay, I'm actually getting that. Yeah, I just brought it up just now. Okay, live
Right.
server. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like the signal thing.
Okay.
But yeah, live server, you're going to install that. This is what's going to allow you to do what I'm about to do right now.
Okay.
And that's going to be to open up an HTML document on your browser. Um, and I'm going to show you. So once you have your HTML file, all you really have to do is you're going to right click your HTML file, and you're going to click on Open with Live Server. So once Live Server is installed, you should now have this option. When you press this, it's going to ask you if you want to open up your application in the browser. Right? It says your application is running on port 5500, is available. Open in browser. You're gonna click yes. Uh, Now my live server is messed up. I've yet to get to it. So if you get something like this, what this is essentially doing is opening up the directories that you are currently in inside your browser. This is not exactly what you want. You essentially just want this to open up only the HTML file, but my live server is not properly set up. But if you do get something like this, all you have to do is go to the folder that your HTML document is located in. So for me, it's lesson 03, right? That's where I created my HTML file. And to be fair, you guys should have created there too as well. So it should be lesson 03. When you click lesson 03, uh, intro CSS, I am inside of practice layouts. And yeah, there we go. This is my blank HTML document. I don't have anything in here. The next step is going to be to connect my style sheets. So within my head, the way that I connect a style sheet is by using the link tag. I'm going to create a REL attribute, which stands for relationship, I believe. And we're going to type in style sheet. After that, I am going to create an href attribute. And this is going to be the file path to my my CSS document. That should have it ready. Now, to make sure this is connected, I'm going to go ahead and create a header tag here to print something out. I'm just going to say hello. And there we go. Hello there. Let me go ahead and adjust the H1 to make sure it's working. I'm going to say color red. And it works. So my style sheet is successfully connected to my HTML document. They're talking, good to go. But this is not exactly what we wanted, right? We are going to practice our layout sheets. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, in your layout, what you're going to find is some PNGs, right? They're pretty bland. There's nothing crazy about these PNGs. But the reason why there's layout PNGs is so you can see or to have something to reference, right? Your goal with this assignment is to try to recreate the layout on these PNGs. So for our assignment for the start of our class today, we're going to do layout 1, and then I'm going to assign to you guys layout 2 and 3 for homework, right? So if you want additional practice with working with divs, try to recreate layout 2 and layout 3 with that. But for today in class, so we can get to practice, we're just going to do layout 1. And looking at layout 1, right? You can kind of already start to deconstruct in your head how you're going to want to create this, right? You're going to want to have one big div, right? Ideally, you might not want to break it up from left to right. You might want to start from top to bottom. So what I'll probably do is I'll create 4 divs, one for each row, right? So I'll have one div that goes from left to right. I'll have another div that goes from left to right here, but it's going to have 3 other divs within here, right, to simulate these boxes. The third div is going to have 2 other divs inside of it to simulate these 2 boxes. And then we'll have a 4th div at the very bottom, right, to create this. And I'll show you what I mean, right? We'll get to this in a little bit. But what do I mean by divs and recreating these boxes? Let's check it out. Let me go ahead and kind of try this out real quick. In my HTML, I'm going to create one div real quick to show you. Div. Right, there's nothing really here, right? It's empty. And I'm going to create 2 divs inside of this one div. And let me add some spacing just so I can make sure we can see where this starts and ends. Right, this doesn't do anything. So I'm gonna add some styling here so we can visualize what these divs look like. We have there's one big div that hosts three other divs nested within it. So to differentiate between these two, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give these guys classes. The outer div, which is the one that is holding them, we tend to call this the parent. So I'm gonna go ahead and just give it a class of parents, right? And then for the other divs inside, I'm going to give it a class of child. Right? This is pretty standard to reference stuff like this in this manner. Parent and child. Oh, I did this wrong. There we go. Right. For you, Kevin, because I know if you've never seen HTML, it might be a little confusing. These are opening tags, and then the closing tags have a forward slash. This is how we create elements on HTML, right? So if you want to create header, for example, I would open up an opening tag, and notice that VS Code is pretty smart. It auto-completed it for me. We have the opening and the closing tag. This is where we surround the content of our web pages, right? And then here I can add content, right? So I can say welcome. And you'll see that the welcome is displayed, right? So whatever you put between the opening and the closing tag, that's the actual content of your element. And then you pretty much wrap it from left to right to specify, hey, this is the start and the end of my content for this. And what type of content is it with an H1, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here. We create one big div, and then by putting stuff inside of it, we're saying that there's three other divs inside of here, right? What we're going to do here is we assign it a class so we can specifically style these divs in very unique manners. Let's go ahead and style the parent first, and then we'll work with the child. So in my CSS, I'm going to go ahead and grab the parent div by calling its class. So let's go ahead and come back here. Classes use dot notation. So I'm gonna say dot parent. And just to visually look at it, let's go ahead and create a background color. I'm gonna say blue. And I misspelled it, I think. What's going on? Blue. Is it because there's no content in here? Let's check. There's nothing in here, so I think that's why it doesn't display anything. Let me go ahead and add a height of 100 pixels. There we go. Okay, it was a little confusing. So I added a height of 100 pixels to actually give it some, some width or height, right? Because there was no content inside of my divs. Every div inside of here is essentially empty. There's nothing to take up space. Therefore, it was blank and empty. So it wasn't creating that background color for me. So add a height, and I'm also going to add a width to this of 100 pixels. Let's actually increase this to 500 because it's too small. There we go. 500 by 500 by 500. Cool. All right. So here's my parent. Let's look at the child, right? We're going to grab the children of this div by using dot child. And for the children, I'm going to give them a color of red. As you can see here, it didn't change anything because those children are also empty. We didn't give them any values. So I'm going to say height. And these I'm going to keep small. So I will make these 100 pixels by 100 pixels. and they look a little weird, right? Why does it look this way? This isn't, they look weird. It looks like a long rectangle, but it shouldn't be long rectangles because we have 100 pixels by 100 pixels, and it looks like it's one item. So let's go ahead and give these borders so we can see what's actually happening here. I'm gonna create a border. I'm gonna get 1 pixel that's solid and it's black. And now we can visually look at our rectangles, right? We can see our rectangles. I'm sorry, I don't know my shapes. We can see our squares here, right? Um, we have 3 squares, right? These are the children, the child divs, which are right here, right? And they were created inside of the parents, right? So the parent is wrapping around it, and it's essentially doing the same thing that I just mentioned, right? We can see it in here. Now, I want to kind of center, I would like to center these divs inside of the parent class. If I wanted to center these these squares, who would receive this styling? The parent or the child?
The parent, right?
Yeah, the parent, right? So the reason for that is if I try to add styling to the child, if I like try to like center, it won't really know, it won't do what I expect it to do. In my head, you would think, hey, I'm gonna center these boxes, these children boxes, right? So I'm gonna align them to the center, but it won't know what the heck it's talking about. Like when they like align to who, to where, right? So when you talk about aligning, whether it's vertical or horizontal, you are actually referring to its contents, like the inside of what it's holding, right? So when you style something alignment wise, if I were to try to style children, it's not going to align the box itself. It's going to align the contents of children. Children doesn't have anything. Um, but with that same mentality or with that same concept, that's how we are going to style this. We're going to style parents because what is the content of parents? 3 other divs, right? The parent has 3 divs inside of it. So when I try to align parents' content, it's going to align the children inside of it. So if I wanted to center the child class divs, I need to give the styling to the parent. So let's do that. Well, to align these, we're going to use a specific command, which I believe it was display. Yeah, display. And it's going to be flex. Display flex. And then I'm going to save this. Immediately, it's going to already apply some kind of styling to it. Display flex comes with some secondary commands that's going to allow us to manipulate these boxes. In combination with float and position, it determines the type of box or boxes that are generated for an element. But you typically want to start with this. You want to start with flex. Now, after we give it the attribute of flex, it's pretty much saying that, hey, whatever content you have, I want you to be flexible with what you have, right? We need to start manipulating this. That's kind of like my way of understanding it. Now, if I want to align it horizontally from left to right, I would require the command called justify content. And this is pretty unique to Flexbox as far as I'm tracking. And you kind of receive the kind of input it's asking me or offering me. We see center and flex end, flex start, left, right, space around, space between, space evenly. We'll get to all these in a little bit, but let's go ahead and try center. And then I'm going to save it. And it's going to take the content inside of parent and it's going to center our box from left to right. Now, if I wanted to also center it vertically, what I need is the command of align items. And from here, once again, I'm gonna give it center. And it successfully centers it in the middle of the div. Do you have any questions? I'm gonna try to use. I actually don't know if it's gonna work. No, I did not. I should know better. We had some other options when using justify content. Space evenly is pretty useful. From left to right is going to align the content evenly, right? So remember, justify content is what is. Okay, there we go. That's what it was. Horizontal. Right? Justify content is the horizontal alignment. And align items is going to be your vertical. Right? Do I have any questions? No question whatsoever. Okay. Align item. Let's see what align item gives me. Flex N. Let's look at this one. Bottom. Right, because it is vertical. What else do we have here? We have start, flex in. Let's go with end in general. Same concept. Okay. We'll go with center. Justify content. Let's fix this one. Let's see what else it gives me. We have space around. Let's do space between. I have an extra hashtag here or colon. Space between does not do them evenly, as you can see. So you kind of have to experiment with these to see what you want. Space around is another good one. It won't be even, but it will put space around, right? So there are different ways of doing this. I think we can also do another one called flex direction. Oh, this was good. Flex direction is another powerful one. It doesn't really make sense here. Let me go ahead and add some content. I'm going to do child 1, child 2, and this just so we can visualize which one's which. Child 3. Right, this is the order: child 1, child 2, child 3. I can say flex direction, and what we can do is do something like column reverse column. So if I didn't want it in a row, I can add columns. I can even reverse the column. You see how it switches the order of them. What else do we have? It was originally set to row. I could do row reverse, and it reverses the order, right? So flex direction is another powerful one that you can use in combination with display flex. What else? Let's see. Inherit. No, I think that's gonna be it for this one. So yeah, this is gonna be the commands you're gonna use for organizing or aligning your boxes. Right now, with this in mind, you're gonna spend the next 15 minutes on trying to recreate layout 1. Right? You're going to recreate layout 1 with the commands that I just gave you. So take everything that we just talked about, create an HTML document, CSS if you have it, create the divs, give it some color and a border so you can visually see it, and then try to recreate it as best as possible. This should be the size of your entire screen, right? The size of your entire screen is right here. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause the recording now. Welcome back, everybody. Before we went and worked into assignment, we talked about working with display flex. Were you guys watching me as I was coding along the CSS for this? Anybody?
A little bit.
A little bit. Were you guys
Yep.
able to recreate this? Who came close?
Nowhere near.
Yeah, okay, so Kevin said nowhere near. Anybody else come somewhat closest? Okay, yeah, sure. So
I mean, I came somewhere near there. I just need a few adjustments.
sure, actually let's go with yours. I'd rather see one of y'all's than have to talk through mine. Let me go ahead and stop my share. Let's look at yours, Daniel, and maybe we can even talk a little bit about how we can bridge that gap, whatever you may be missing.
All right. Let's see.
Oh, it is close, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I came up with. Let me see how to swap what I'm sharing now.
You're practically done, actually.
Yeah, it's just the here, I'll just share the whole desktop, make it easier. So this is the kind of the code that I came up with just for the layout of it.
Mhm.
Just did a simple naming scheme for it. But for the styles, for the childs, that like we initially had the 3 blocks of,
Uh-huh.
I wasn't sure how to evenly space them out other than like, 1/3 is 33%. But if you see, there's still a little bit of gap between the parent where it's medium blue, just to see if I was trying to close that gap in that. That's what I've been working at. But I'm not sure how to split it evenly between 3.
That is a good question. Let me look at mine because honestly, talking about it, I can't remember how I did it, but I did do it. I think it should automatically take up the whole space. Yeah, I put width 100%, height 100%, row to column. Yeah. So what you want to do, let me see the parents for that.
The parent I
Who-
have width at 100% and then just height of random 200 pixels, because every time I tried doing the height of like a certain percentage of the screen, it just kind of like all got crushed. If that
Right.
makes-
So you you have multiple rows, right? Are they all? Let me see the classes of your rows. Can I see go your HTML? So top, okay, these are your rows, right? I'm assuming
Yeah,
this is
so
the
that was
yeah,
the top part. Yeah. And then parent was like that second row that I did. And then the middle was the center
okay,
area where it was green. And then the bottom is bottom.
right. So they are a little bit different. Um, so first and foremost, you kind of want to make sure that everything I just highlighted is centered before you start working with the inside stuff. So what you should have done is ideally put all of these in one big div, but you didn't. And
Okay.
that's okay. It's not necessarily wrong, but you should have. We could just go ahead and format the body instead. So what you can do is I want you to grab the body and give the body display flex.
Okay. And put that at the top so that way it's the
Right,
first thing it sees.
right. You give the body display flex. Open that up.
It'd help if I spell.
It's okay.
And then flex, just normal.
Yeah, correct. Yep. And then you it should update it. Okay.
You got a
Uh
period before the body.
Yeah, is it
no, that's oh yeah, you do. You have to remove it. It's not class
okay.
body. It's we're grabbing the tag body,
Okay.
right? And then you can save that. Um Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to change the flex direction, right? So right now it's by default it's set to row. We want it in a column.
Right. So then it would be justify.
Yeah,
You want
let's do flex direction first.
flex direction first, all right.
Yeah, let's get flex direction first, and you're going to set this to column. So instead of putting it all in a row, there you go. It's back to how it should be, right?
Mhm.
And now they're all stacked up on each other in a column, right? There's a
Mhm.
okay, yeah, they should all be like in one column, column one, column two, column three, column four. And then the next thing you do is when you create these rows, uh, you can set the height to, for example, we'll do the top one, set it to like 20% or 15%, one of those. Okay, set your body height to so let's make sure that our body actually takes up the entire window. So how can we set the height of there you go 100 view heights? Perfect, and also make sure that the width is set as well. There you go. Now what that does, the outer shell, which is the body, it can take the full size of your screen. So when you set the height of your rows to 20%, it's going to take up 20% of the container that it is in. And what is the container?
The body.
The body, right? So now it knows how to set that percentage up, because that's kind of how it uses to reference, right? Or it's when you tell something to take up 100% of something, it's going to take up 100% of the container that's within, right? That's how that percentage works. So before it didn't know how to set it, which is why it was getting weird. So you have to set a limit, right, to the container, right? That limit was the view height. So there is nothing bigger than view height, right? 100% of the view height. So when the child inside of it says, I want to take 20% of my container, the container is the body. So it's going to take 20% of whatever body is. Make sense? So that means if you shorten the height of body, this will also adjust the rows itself. They will only ever take 20% of the container that it's within. I hope that's not too confusing.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, so you can do that. So you can set the percentages. So you can do like the top and bottom to like 20% or like 15, however you want to do it, and it'll take it accordingly. So yeah, you can go to bottom, do 20%. Let's look at it. Let me see your browser. Yeah, it's working just fine. Yeah. And then there's 60% left of our view height. You can set it however you would like.
So just 30 and 30, split it.
The bottom one is thicker than the top one.
Maybe 40, 20.
It actually makes more sense if you actually lower the top one and the bottom rows to like 15. Because this one is actually thicker than the bottom row and the top row. So those need to be smaller. So 15% and 15% will probably do. And then sets the second row to like 30%.
And then
And
for
then
this one, because I kind of like left the child inside the parents. Is that okay that I did that?
the child inside the parents. What do you mean?
So like the child here, I'll flick back. Just
Set the third row to 40%. So
the fourth row being the middle.
yeah, set that one to 40%. Okay, it
is.
is set to 40%. Oh, I see. That's why it looks weird. Okay, so this is the blue is the
Yes.
second row. Is that correct? This
Yes,
is
it's
the
part of the
third
parent.
row. Okay, I see.
Yeah. bump that to 100% and see if that fixes the, yeah, see now
Yep.
it's gonna fix the container.
Now it's, yes, now it's set to the container of the parent. Yeah. So now it's starting to work. So you want to start from the outside and work inwards, because then it can get very confusing.
there. And then this one, this center, we got what, 15, and then 20, 35, 65. So that leaves me 35% left. If I'm mathing right. Public
For what?
math. For the last one. Because it was still, this one was still set by pixel height, which I
Okay.
now set it to. So now it takes up 100%.
There you go. Open it up, full screen. Let's see if it's dynamic. Yeah, right on. Now, what do you see here? What's weird about this page? There's something weird going on.
There's still a border, or I guess you'd say like margin.
Yeah, it's margin, right? So by default, your browser is going to add margin to your entire application. It's actually set to the body by default. So I want you to go to the body, and I want you to set the margin to 0. It doesn't tell you about it. It's a little weird. So set margin to 0. And then it should remove it. No, just 0, just straight 0.
Oh, just
Or that too. That works fine, as we saw. Yeah. And there you go. Now there's no weird space outside where there shouldn't be. But yeah, by default, I don't know why it sets a little bit of margin on your body. But
yeah.
there you go.
The only thing that bugs me still is that, like that little bit of line on either side. Like I don't know if
Okay.
there's instead of
The
using
width.
percentage, be like even spacing.
No. Let's see. The width, I think you can probably do what is that? The middle left? Middle child. You can do that to 100%.
Well, will they butt up against each other though? If I do the
They shouldn't. They should do 100%.
there you go. Yeah, they fill properly then.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. You got any questions?
No.
Yeah, very good exercise. You're honestly, this right here, this exercise, centering divs or just messing around with divs is probably gonna be your biggest headache when you're doing CSS. The other stuff is mainly like, what's the limit of your imagination. But all right. Time is 6:27. It actually took a little bit longer than I expected. So let's go ahead and take our 10-minute break before we dive straight into JavaScript. There's a lot to cover with JavaScript, and if you did not start with JavaScript, went straight to Python, it might be a little confusing. So let's take a 10-minute break. Time 6:28. I'll see you guys at 6:38. Welcome back. We just completed lesson 3, which is CSS. The remainder of our class, we are going to start talking about JavaScript. Just so I am aware of the audience that I'm speaking to, who here has no experience in JavaScript? Dominic, I saw your hand raised. Nobody
Very
else? Who was that?
I said very little.
He gave very little. Okay. All right. So if at any point you guys get confused, please ask me away. I will try to answer everybody's questions. I will do my best to ensure that I give you guys the Python equivalent of how it is done. If as we talk about something, to ensure that we can kind of understand it. So you guys are actually in a very weird transition. So the way that it used to be was that the intro to coding course is in JavaScript, which it is, but we are transitioning into Python. Before it was everyone that came in, for sure, typically already knew JavaScript. So the immersive program will give you a Python crash course. But because we are transitioning into a Python intro to coding course, we no longer do a Python crash course. Now they do a JavaScript crash course. So unfortunately, you are in that weird little buffer space, or like upon transition. So you guys might not be able to get a very in-depth class into Python if you did start off with JavaScript. and you're learning Python. So if you started with JavaScript and you don't know any Python, um, then you might struggle a little bit. But we will have a little Python crash course while we're here. Um, for those of you who don't know any JavaScript, you guys are in luck because the immersive program will talk a little bit more in depth about JavaScript now. But we're going to require some JavaScript. And without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it because I want to make sure we can get to cover as much as we can. All right, so a really important idea, and I've voiced this a lot for those of you who attended the guided application program, is that a computer can only do what you tell it to do, right? Your code will specifically only do what you command it to do. And a video that I like showing is a exact representation of what I'm talking about. Give me a second. Let's see if I can pull it up. Okay, let me go ahead and update what I'm sharing. You guys have probably seen this video. I'm gonna run it for just a minute, nothing too crazy, just so we can understand what I'm trying to get at, right? This video does a great way of representing exactly what your code's gonna do. This video here is about a father who gives his son and his daughter a practice exercise. He tells them, I want you to write me the instructions of how to create a peanut butter sandwich. So the kids get to work, they get a piece of paper, and they write out the instructions of how to perform this task. Now, the dad, what he does is he reads through their kids' instructions and he takes it very literally. And this does a great example of showing exactly how your code works whenever you guys are coding and the problems that you may face. So let's just look at it for a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Making any sense? He's already ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one.
What's up, the internet? You know what? I'm hungry. I could really go for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you guys think you can write down some instructions and teach me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah.
Then do it.
I knew we were gonna do this. I heard Dad talking to Mom.
Choke yourself on my hand. Sometimes they do what you tell them.
Dad, I'm done.
Step 1. Get 2 pieces of bread out. Got 'em. Get a butter knife and get some PB. Take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
No, Dad, with the peanut butter.
I'm just doing what it says. It says take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
Hold on.
Get some jelly, rub it on the other half of the bread.
No, Dad, open the jelly.
Well, it doesn't say to do that. Put the breads together on top of each other. Take a big bite. This doesn't taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to make it extremely specific.
Oh, good. I'm starving. Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop a bit of peanut butter out
A bit,
of the...
that means like a lot.
A bit means a lot?
In my world.
Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with the knife. All right. There we go.
You're doing better than before, though.
Open the jelly jar. Squeeze it onto the other piece of bread.
Nope.
Done. Closer. Get 2 pieces bread.
All right, I hope you guys like that video. but this is an exact representation of how your code works, right? So you guys probably experienced this as you guys were learning how to code when if you guys came to the guided application program, whether it was within a for loop or when you try to reassign a variable or update a key value pair, you knew exactly what you wanted your program to do, but unfortunately the code you wrote wasn't doing it, right? And then you start getting very frustrated. Um, but your code only does exactly what you tell it to do. So you quite literally have to take your code and run it step by step by step to get it to create the outcome that you're looking for. Um, and that's just something that you really have to kind of understand as you write your code. When something is not working, it's probably because you missed something, right? You're not being very specific enough. So what is a program? A program is just a fancy word for a set of instructions, right? We are essentially using a programming language like Python or JavaScript to create a set of instructions for our computer to do, whether it's to create a variable and assign it, to iterate through something, whether you are using Python to do like some form of scripting. It is essentially just a set of instructions in a language that your computer can understand. What is programming? Programming is the task of writing those instructions in a language that the computer can understand. JavaScript is a high-level language. Who knows what the definition of a high-level language is? Or who can take a quick guess?
It's just a language that's like it's just easy to understand. Well, for the most part, it's just using a lot of words. Low level, they use like numbers and like binaries and stuff, so it can be harder to read, right?
Yeah, you're kind of spot on when you mentioned the easy to read, right? So a high level language is a language that is very human readable, right? So it uses English words, right? Like take Python for example. When you want to display or print something out on your screen, you use the word print, right? Whether if it's a for loop, the for I in whatever x, right? It uses certain English words that are easy to understand for you as a human, and then transition that into some form of instructions that the computer knows, right? So human readable syntax. The next part of, or another part of being a high level language is the abstraction from the hardware. So JavaScript, Python, these high level languages don't really mess too much with the hardware like some other coding languages like C++. So you don't have to uh, manage memory addresses, right? If you guys have ever seen assembly, that is not a high level language, right? It can be very confusing, right? So you don't have to assign or mess with the memory of your variables or anything crazy like that. Give the machine any kind of instructions. The next one will be like built-in libraries and tools, right? So these high-level languages have a bunch of tools that you can use already that are kind of pre-built, right? So that it's easy for programmers to understand. They contain English words, and it keeps all the extra stuff like working with the hardware out of the equation, right? So you only focus on the main meat and potatoes of what you're looking for. We're gonna skip this one. All right. So we've seen this diagram before. What makes up a web page? We've taken care of the first two pillars of this, which was the HTML, right? That was our structure. That was the skeleton of our website, right? That's kind of what holds the foundation or structure of how our website should look like. The different elements, whether it's a header, whether it's divs, paragraphs, this is what holds every single part of this skeleton together, right? Or this person or this program in a sense. CSS was the styling. This is what gave it a very nice visual appeal. We didn't do anything crazy as you already saw through CSS, just enough to get you to understand it. But CSS is what makes something look pretty. What changes the color or the shape of a button, the font style, the font size, what shapes, whether something is aligned vertically or horizontally, whether it's the top left corner of your screen or the bottom right? CSS is styling. Now, up to this point, you've had a pretty static and plain website, right? Or websites, because we haven't really done a full website. We haven't put it together yet, but it hasn't really done anything. It's just been very static. It has not moved. When you create a button, you press a button, it doesn't do anything. Now we're about to introduce that JavaScript, which is the functionality of your website. Thinking or using the analogy of a human being, right? JavaScript is the fact that you can move your arms, right? If I was a program, I can move my arms or speak or run, right? That is the functionality here. All three of these pillars here, these components, is what's going to make up your web page. The DOM. The DOM is an important concept that you have to understand when working with JavaScript to make your web page do something, right? The DOM stands for Document Object Model, right? It is a programming interface for web documents. It is not something that you can visually see, right? Right off the bat, oh, I have to say that. You cannot see the DOM. It's not something that you can just kind of like visualize. What the DOM really is really a copy of the structure of your web page, right? So whenever you open up your HTML file using live server, what your browser does, it takes a copy of the structure of what your web page looks like, whether it's the tags, whether it's the CSS, and that's how it displays it on your browser, right? And it's quite literally something very similar to this. You just don't visually see it, right? So your browser makes a copy of your document, which contains the HTML, and then using the HTML is able to access stuff like the head or the body and other subparts of this document, right? It essentially works almost like a tree. And we're going to talk about how we can use the DOM to manipulate our web page using JavaScript. Now, when working with JavaScript, it's going to be fairly similar to how we link our CSS page to our HTML. You can either do it in the head or you can do it in the body of your web page. Now, which one you decide to do is going to be up to you. There's pros and cons to both of these. When linking your JavaScript file, your script file in the head, there are some pros that go with it and some cons. The pros of putting the head is that when you load up your page, the script is going to load first before everything else. And that can be a pretty important task, especially if your website relies on certain scripts that you have in your JavaScript file, right? So if you don't have it in your head, right, and in your JavaScript, you have some kind of function that's supposed to grab information from your backend or from some other API to show on your browser. And if you don't have it in your head, it's going to fail to load this on your page right away. So it's almost like when you sign up, right, or when you sign into your profile on Instagram, right? The moment you click sign in, a request is made to the server where they grab your information. They grab your profile information or your posts, your friends list, right? And they use this information to then display it on your screen, right? This script needs to run so they can show you your information of your profile. But if for some reason your script does not load before the HTML and the CSS of your page, what's going to happen when it tries to display the HTML and CSS of your page? It's going to be missing content, right? Because it hasn't returned back with the information from the backend that contains your friends lists, your posts, your activity, right? So you quite literally won't see anything on your page, or at least it's going to take a while before it does that, right? So it's common practice to want to put your your JavaScript inside your head, like you see here, right? So you can either put it in the head or you can put it inside of your body. Now, the body, when you do this, what it's going to do is it's going to run your HTML, and then once it has everything loaded, then it's going to use the script tag, right? And you want to do this if there's something that you want to display on your browser before people start clicking on buttons. So which one you use is really up to you. But it's more recommended, right, that you put it in your head. That way, any of the functionality that your website might have is loaded up before anything is shown to the user. So by having it in the head, it'll start kind of preloading the script, right? That way, once they see the buttons or the sign up form, the login form, and they go to sign in, they don't, prematurely try to sign in before something has been fully loaded. So you can do either or. There's no wrong or right answer, but I highly recommend you just stick to using the script tag inside your head, right? Now, unlike the CSS, they does not use the link tag. It uses a script tag, right? This is a regular tag, an open and close tag, as you see here. So it's not going to be a self-closing tag like the link. You'll have an open and close tag, and it's going to take two attributes, and we'll talk about async in a little bit. It's going to take two attributes. The first one is going to be a type, very similar to kind of how the link had a relationship attribute. It's something very similar to that, right? You're just declaring what type of script this is, right? You're saying it's text / JavaScript. This is the standard for a JavaScript file, right? Instead of href, you're going to use the source attribute to tell it to use the app.js file, right? Essentially, the file path of where this script is located at. Now, the async is used when you want to add a script in your head. That way, it starts downloading the script in the background while the rest of your page loads, right? So once the script is done loading, it pauses everything and then it runs it right away, right? Even the page isn't fully loading yet. So you want to have, oh, my bad. You want to have the async in here for this to work as intended, as I mentioned, right? So standard for using it in your head, you want to have script, have the async, right? And then you want to give it the type and the source. All right, before we go into the assignments, let's go ahead and open up a JavaScript file so we can talk through how we're going to manipulate the DOM. We are going to go into lesson 4. And in lesson 4, there is a already created document called background color. Actually, let's create a new file so we can go through actually linking this JavaScript file. So inside of lesson 4, I want you to create a HTML file, index.html. And I want you to create a JavaScript file. It's going to be app.js. Am I still sharing? Yes, okay. Now, going to your HTML file, we are going to set up our boilerplate. And then inside of the head, we are going to create a script tag. As I mentioned to you guys before, we're going to add the keyword async. And it's already giving you a definition. This is a Boolean attribute indicating that the browser should, if possible, load the script asynchronously, right? We're going to set up our attributes, which should be, it was type, I believe. Type. I'm pretty sure it was type. Yeah, type. Why do I doubt myself? Text / JavaScript. Afterwards, we set the source. And because the index.html file is created at the same level as this JavaScript file, all I have to do is put app.js. Now, what I like to do is before I start creating any crazy functions and doing crazy stuff, I want to make sure that my JavaScript file successfully linked to my document. So the way that I do that is going to be by open this up with Live Server. I'm gonna open up the HTML document with Live Server. Open browser. It should be lesson 4. All right, I'm here. Now, how do I know if my JavaScript file loaded? I'm gonna open up the inspect tool. And the inspect tool is going to be used a lot when working with JavaScript, right? The reason for that is because we have access to the console, right? We want to have access to the console so we can see how our JavaScript works. For those of you who start out with Python, you're familiar with the print statement. And we use the print statement a lot of times to debug. We want to see what our code is doing to see if it's actually working. We're going to do the same thing here. The command in JavaScript to print something out is console.log. Console.log. Right, this is essentially the equivalent of the print statement. And within the .log parentheses, I'm going to say, hello, this is me, or whatever you guys want to say. And now I am going to refresh my page and see what happens. And it did not do anything. And probably because I didn't save my HTML document. And it did not do that. Give me a second. Why?
You have 2 JavaScript files named the same. Would that affect it?
No, because this JavaScript file is within day of week.
Oh,
Right. So the file path is different. Console.log. Hello, this is me. Why is it not doing?
I think
what
your
it-
live server is your live server on? Because I think it's see the
Yeah, it's on. Is it running for you guys?
yes, I see it in mine. In the
Yeah.
console log.
It should have shown it for mine. My live server would be acting weird. Oh, let me try to fix this. It's really annoying. Uh, why are you not doing this? Script async source. There's nothing wrong here. All right, let me pause the record and see what we can do to debug this. All right, so we fixed our issue. I was missing the R from the JavaScript within type, so it wasn't tracking that it was a JavaScript file. So whatever. Here it is. We have hello, this is me. And why is it running immediately? Why is it the moment that I load up this website, it just starts printing out hello, this is me?
that's one of the first things that was loaded.
Yeah,
Was your-
absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
so go ahead, Keegan. My bad. I keep interrupting you.
It's all good.
He's like, yeah, don't do it again. Yeah, so when we load our browser, it's going to run it from top to bottom. It gets to a script tag. It sees, okay, you have a JavaScript file. Roger that. Let me go ahead and look for this JavaScript file. And I'm going to run everything inside of your JavaScript file from top to bottom. And I quite literally have a command that says console.log. I'm telling it right off the bat, just go ahead and print this out. And it does so, right? And we can visualize our console with the inspect tool. And here is our console. Hello, this is me. And it's even going to tell you where it's being printed out from. It shows app.js1, right? On line 1, it's printing out this right here. So our console tool here is going to be your biggest friend when working with your JavaScript, to see what your code is doing. And you typically want to do this before you start putting a bunch of code in here, because then you don't even know what's happening, and then trying to debug a function here can be pretty annoying if the function is probably working, it's just not connected right. So before you even get into your actual functionality, always make sure that your script is working and you did it correctly. Because if I wouldn't have done this, I would have not known that it wasn't connected. I would have probably gone straight through and added some functions, and then my debugging process would be like, what did I do wrong in my function? But quite literally, there is nothing wrong with the function. It might have been just the fact that I didn't connect my file correctly to my HTML, right? So there we go. We have a JavaScript file working. This is obviously very simple. But what's happening here, well, the reason we're using JavaScript is so we can manipulate the DOM. And the DOM, this is actually part of how the DOM works, using this inspect tool. The fact that you can see all your elements, the fact that you can see the console, you can see the CSS, this is your DOM working in real time. The moment your browser loads up your document, it creates a version of your document in a tree-like structure, and that's how it's able to display to you everything inside these inspect tools. Now we're going to use these tools to quite literally manipulate our HTML. Now, there's a couple ways of how we are going to do that. And that's going to be with a couple commands. Let's look at them. Right, referencing HTML elements with JavaScript. We have, which it might look a little intimidating at first, but this is just straight JavaScript, right? There's a method here called document.querySelector. What do you think document is? For those of you who know JavaScript, you probably have never ran into this before. What is document? Who could take a guess?
I'm gonna assume it's the HTML file loading.
It's what you're trying to grab on the HTML file specifically, I think.
Very close. I'm referencing the DOM, right? I don't actually specifically reference the HTML document. I use the DOM as my middleman, because I can't really just like manipulate it just using raw JavaScript. I leverage the DOM, right? I leverage the DOM, the document object model. That's where this method is coming from, right? This is pre-built with JavaScript. You're able to manipulate DOMs with this specific class here, right? When it runs this JavaScript, it reads document, and your browser automatically knows that you are referring to the DOM. So I'm saying, hey, within document, I want you to run this function called query selector, right? So I am manipulating the DOM using the document object here. Document.querySelector. So this is actually an object, right? Document object model. So with using the document, it has a method that it comes pre-built with, right? I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. We can get a little bit more references of what type of methods we have. If you go to W3 Schools, you should be able to do, I think JavaScript should have it, either JavaScript or HTML. Here we go. If you go to JavaScript and you scroll down, you're gonna find the JavaScript HTML DOM methods, right? This is a built-in stuff, or this is built-in methods for JavaScript that you can do with it, right? You can look more into the intro. It's going to show you how the DOM kind of looks like. It's quite literally the same tree that I showed you guys, right? It creates a copy of your HTML element that you can reference, right? You can reference this tree object that it creates, right? With the object model, JavaScript gets all the power it needs to create dynamic HTML. So we don't manipulate the HTML file directly. We tell the DOM to manipulate it for us. Does that make sense? Right, because the DOM is a copy of our HTML document. So we use a DOM to manipulate the HTML, right? So JavaScript has the ability to get access to the structure of our HTML document. And we quite literally have methods to grab the different parts of this tree, Right? We can change HTML elements, attributes, even CSS. Right? We can remove and even add stuff with it. There are some methods that come with this, and these are the exact same methods that I am showing you. Right? There is get element by ID, which you can kind of already guess what this is doing. Right? It's a way to access an HTML element, and you use the ID of that element to be able to grab that element specifically. There's another method here called inner HTML. It allows us to replace the content of HTML elements, and we're going to see these in a little bit. Let's look at other stuff. So the document object represents your web page. We can access different parts of our web page using the DOM. If you want to access any element in the HTML page, you always start with accessing the document object. How do we access the document object? By using the document command, right? Document is the object itself, and we are trying to specify to the object that we want to grab an element by an ID, and then you pass in the ID. So these are a couple methods here that you can kind of go through if you want to look more into this. But these are pre-built that come with JavaScript. Right, there's a lot of stuff that we can do with a DOM. We're not going to cover half of these at all. Okay, there's so much. But I just want to show you that so you understand that I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. This is quite literally built. It's a built-in JavaScript function. Right, so with that in mind, I want you guys to take a quick look at this slide. And someone who has kind of worked with some JavaScript, can you tell me or guess what this is doing?
Looks like it's going to be changing the background color of whatever website you have based on a click of a button. So it looks like, certain.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are spot on, right? So what this is saying, right? It accesses the document 3 different times. When it grabs the DOM, it uses a method called query selector. Query is essentially like looking for something. You're going to select something by what does this hashtag means? What do we know about hashtags when talking about HTML, CSS?
It's an ID.
It's an ID, right? So we are querying for something with the ID of turn red. So there is some kind of element, right? There is some kind of selector or element called turn red, or it has the ID of turn red. And then after we grab that element, we use another function that's kind of like combined, called add event listener. And this add event listener takes 2 different arguments. It takes what event you're looking or you're listening for. And the second argument is what you want to do after this event happens, right? So event listeners are things that happen on your browser, right? Or on your web page. These can range from moving your mouse, clicking a button, pressing down on a key, right? There's different events that happen on your browser, right? That you have access to. You can listen to them. One of them is the click event, which you can probably guess is the clicking of your mouse. So this add event listener allows us to track the moment someone clicks on something, right? That specific something is whatever this has this ID. So whenever someone clicks on the item that has the ID of turn red, I want to run the turn red function. Well, where is this function at? Well, it's down here. We use JavaScript to create a function called turn red function. Well, what is this function doing? This function accesses the DOM again. It selects the body, right? Notice there is no hashtag and there's no dots, right? This is a raw element. It is accessing the body element of our HTML. After it grabs the body, it uses the dot style method joined with the background color method and sets it to red. I don't expect you guys to know these by memory, right? These are the specific ways of how you manipulate certain attributes or properties, and I'll show you these in a little bit. But just by looking at this code, I can kind of guess already that it's going to set the background color of the body to red. And then we have three different functions. Each one of these sets the background or the background color of body to a different color, right? Red, blue, or purple. Where are these elements? Let's go ahead and let's go to dom.css. Right. Changing HTML style, right? To change the style of an HTML element, use this syntax. You quite literally access the DOM, you grab an element by the ID, and then you access its style attribute. You are going to check or add the property you're trying to change, and then you assign it a whole new different property. There is a list of these. I don't know why it's not showing me them. Anyways, the properties should be the exact same properties that we have been using in our CSS file, right? So if you were able to change the background color, you would add that here, dot background color. If you change the font size, dot font size. If you change the border, you can use dot border, right? You are specifically changing the style of an element, and then you set the property and its property value to whatever you want to change it to. Let's look at events, right? I mentioned the clicking events. Let's see a list of all the events. All right, we have on mouse down, on mouse up. So it changes an image when a user holds down the mouse button on load, right? This is another event that happens. Displays an alert box when the page has finished loading. On focus, change the background color of an input field when it gets focused. So there's a lot of things we can do. Let's check mouse events. Mouse over this text, right? This is an event that your browser is able to listen to whenever your mouse goes over a certain element. This is how you set an event listener. You can do the mouse over, the click, mouse out. We're not going to cover all these because it's quite literally a lot. You can even remove an event listener. So we are going to leverage these methods that come with the DOM to manipulate our HTML document, right? Let's add some HTML in here. Inside of my index.html, I'm going to create a new div, and I'm going to say, click me. I'm going to add some CSS to this. There's no CSS file, so I need to create one. New file, style.css. And then I'm going to link this one. Link. I'm going to say REL is style sheet. href is style.css. I'm going to give this div some style. I'm going to say div. Background color is red. I'm going to say border 1 pixel, solid, black. And I'm going to give it a height of 100 pixels. And I'm going to give it a width of 100 pixels. Right. Let's also do text align. I'm going to say center. And then align items, center. So it looks nice and pretty. Oh. Was it align? Oh, why is my keyboard turning off now? Align content. I don't remember which one was it. There we go. Align content. Cool. So here is my click me. Let's add some functionality to this. So here we have something to work with. I'm gonna go back to my app.jss. I want to access this square. So I'm gonna say document dot. I can do query selector, or as you saw earlier, you have get elements by ID, or I think there's get element by class. But the reason we do query selector is for a specific reason, right? Query selector allows you to grab either an element, a ID, or a class. But something like get element by ID is very limiting. It only quite literally grabs an element by only the ID. So the query selector is kind of like the win all, like, do all, be all kind of thing. So yes, you might see other people use like get element by ID or get by class. You can use it, sure. I don't care. I just use query selector because I have the option to grab whether it's just an element or grab ID or a class. So I'm going to grab the div. And then I'm going to do add event listener. And I'm going to listen for the click. Let's move this to the right so I can do a little bit more. I'm going to listen for a click, and then I want to say turn red. I don't have this function. Let's create it. Function. For those of you who are not familiar with JavaScript, right? In Python, we use define, and we can make turn red to create a function. For JavaScript, you write out the whole word of function, and then you give it its name. We're going to say turn red. It takes the parentheses so you can have parameters, but instead of adding the colon to open up the code block, you use curly braces, right? In Python, we use the colon to create that code block so we can come downwards and indent. In JavaScript, the way that it aligns its code is by using curly braces. So we open up some curly braces, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of this square. So I'm going to say document dot query selector. I'm going to grab the div, and I'm going to say dot style dot background. I think it's color. Yeah, dot background color is equal to blue. I actually don't know how this is gonna work. So let's see. Hey, I did it. There you go. So obviously this method here for background color is not exactly that's like how we wrote it in CSS, right? In CSS, we did background dash color, right? If I remember correctly. As you start typing it out, you'll see the correct way that it wants you to do it. Background, right? And here I see color. So it's not going to be the exact same capitalization or format that it's done in CSS, but it's pretty close. So if there's anything that you need to change for style-wise, you can kind of just start typing it out. We could probably do like margin, and you can already see margin, margin left, margin right, margin top. If I want to do border, actually, what's another word? Let's go with font size. Fonts. Look, font family, font size. In CSS, it was font dash family or font dash size. It uses camel case to format it because that is the syntax of JavaScript. That is the naming convention of JavaScript. So we have to match it, right? So we did background color is equal to blue. And we had to put it as a string. And there you have it.
Roger, does the second argument have to be a function in the add event listener?
It does. Why?
Thought maybe a shortcut to not have to do a function.
Look, I'm hovering over it. It tells you the syntax of it. It says the first thing that it listens for is a listener. You see there it says type, click, that's your listener. And then the next item is a function. Right? Appends an event listener for the events whose type attribute value is type. The callback argument sets the callback that will be invoked when the event is dispatched. You will get an issue if you don't create a function. Now, how could I manipulate this code so that every time I click this square, I change the color to blue or red? Think JavaScript wise, right? Because now we're actually thinking about code. We're thinking code wise. Like, if I were to write this out in code, how can I, using these methods that I have, create a method that when I click this, if it's blue, it'll turn red. If it's red, it will turn blue.
It's just an if-else statement.
Yeah, it's an if-else statement, right? The same rules of how code works using, like, if I want to do one or the other still applies here. We want to use an if-else statement, right? So I probably want to do if the block is red, turn it blue. If it's blue, turn it red, right? So how can I write this out? Someone kind of try this out. How would I start this off? Think code-wise. Think if you were still like in Python or JavaScript, if you wanted to turn one thing over to another or whatever, depending on the condition, what do you have to do?
Start with an if, probably.
Yeah, if, and then if what?
If the condition, so if the or if div is blue, I guess.
Right, and you're getting there.
For a selector div.
Yeah, we want to see what is the color, and then we want to check if that color is either blue or red. So we can probably do something like this. Let's go ahead and create a variable. We can do create like a variable so we can hold the object. So let's say let square. For those of you who are familiar with Python, when you create a variable, you just kind of start coding it out. In JavaScript, you have to use the command called let, or it used to be called a var, but this is outdated. But before you create a variable, you have to use the keyword let. So you pretty much tell JavaScript that you're creating a variable. So I can say let square equals document.query selector, and I'm going to grab that div. Right? This now has that div element assigned to this variable. Right? Now, with that in mind, let's check it out. If square, how do we grab the style? How can we grab the style and check the color?
Dot style.
Yeah, dot style, dot background color. If the style background color is equal to blue, or this, I think it might be capitalized. Let's try this. By the way, I've never tried this before. I'm kind of just doing this off the hip. If the background color is equal to blue, then let's change it, right? Square dot style dot background color is equal to red. So I reassign it, right? Else square dot style dot background color is equal to blue. And let's try it out. Did I save it? I did save it, but it's not doing it. Let's change the capitalization. I don't know how sensitive this might be. There we go. I don't know why I didn't like the spelling of the colors. But here we go. Now I have a JavaScript file that's checking the value of background color. And if it's equal to blue, then I'm gonna turn it red. If it's equal to red, I'm gonna turn it blue. So now I have this div that I can click and it changes colors. Right? Any questions?
Yes.
Shoot.
So I was just, instead of making a square variable, I was just copying the lines of code. So using the full doc query selector div dot style dot background color to make my
Okay.
if statement. However, that is not. Hang on, I might have solved it. Never mind. I recall I fixed it.
It's okay. Yeah, anybody else? Okay, time is 7:37. We're gonna take our last break of the night, and then we're gonna come back and continue with some JavaScript and see how you guys do. I'll be back in a bit. All right, welcome back. So next, we talked about working with JavaScript. We made a couple, or we made one function, show you how it worked. Now the same background color picture that you, or picture of code that we just saw, you're going to use this and you are going to work on background colors.html. As you're going to see when you open up your HTML document, it's going to be something very simple. It'll have pretty much what you see here on the slide, turn red, blue, purple. But what your goal is going to be at the end of this exercise is you need to recreate background colors.html to look something similar to this color changer. Now, I understand you won't have this image that you see on the slide. That's okay. Your main goal is to create this where when you click a button, it changes the color of your background. Make the CSS and HTML to match this to make sure that you have the div that you need. They are aligned. They're about a third of the way down of your page, just like you see in this image, right? We'll take about 15 minutes and then we'll come back and go on to the next part of our lesson. Time is 7:48. Let's go ahead and come back at 8:03. I will see you guys in a bit. Let's go ahead. Kevin here is going to demonstrate what he has so far, and we're going to talk through, hopefully get him to a working program. Let's see it, Kevin.
Okay, 1 second. Let me get my
Sure, take your time.
yeah, this on the screen really quick. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go. Okay, so gotta go here, share, and I guess the entire weird. I wonder if my let's see. It's showing black, like my desktop is black for some reason, which I don't think that's the case. Can you see my screen?
It looks like a bunch of diagonal lines that are white with blue background. I can see your mouse.
Let's see. Might have to get it set up. I was like trying to figure this part out. Hold on 1 second.
That's okay, no rush.
Dun, 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 dun. Go back here. Yeah, I might need to actually like set up like because it was showing black on my screen too. I don't know why. Like
Sure,
for
sure.
the screen part. So
See if you can close it out and see if it changes this time.
yeah,
If it's still showing black, then we can get a different volunteer, maybe Keegan.
Okay.
I just got back. It's a
Okay,
dry hole. I don't even know what the assignment was. I was out for
sure.
like 20 minutes.
That's
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so we're gonna see new share again. Yeah, I don't know why it's like showing my desktop is black for.
Okay, that's fine. How about Daniel or Dominic? Do either one of you guys volunteer?
Yeah, if you want to walk me through it, because I am lost as well, brother.
That's okay, Dominic. That's okay. Let's
Yeah,
hit.
yeah, yeah.
Let me stop the share for Kevin. And Dominic, go ahead, start sharing whenever you're ready. Kind of
You
talk
guys
me
got that?
through. Yeah, I can see it. Talk me through what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you struggling with?
So I pulled up all three of your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which I guess the JavaScript was already written out to change colors. We're just trying to change this to look like this, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So what I was struggling, what I was like reading about, again, I'm sure we discussed this before, just a refresher of like how to turn these into like actual buttons, right? To reflect what we're seeing up here. And then, aligning it and all of that stuff. So I guess it's a lot of the CSS since that's uh what
Yeah.
where most of the
So
input's going to be putting.
that's a good point that you're bringing up. So one thing I want to make sure that you guys really understand, if you get anything out of this working with front during FOP, is you want to focus on functionality first, right? CSS should be the last thing that comes into your program, right? One of the last things. You want to make sure you get something on your screen and what it should be doing works, right? All the fancy stuff, the divs and all formatted and all this cool, nice little, shapes, whatever, that does not matter. So first and foremost, your website should work, right? It's okay if it looks ugly. No, like that's not what matters. But really, you can have a full like if you remove the CSS on Facebook, it will look ugly as hell, but it will still work. Even if it has no CSS, it will still be able to achieve its main function. Uh, so whenever you guys are developing, the CSS should be the last thing that is done, right? Sure, you can have some basic CSS because ideally you want something so you can visually see what you're working with. So there might be some very minimal CSS, creating boxes, some borders, maybe just change some colors. Sure. But the actual like making it look pretty doesn't really matter. So first and foremost, looking at that picture, if we're not focusing on visuals, right? What would you want to add in here?
Add into the JavaScript.
Yeah, we probably want to create the other colors and make sure that those are working, right? So
Oh yeah,
going
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wasn't even thinking about the other colors because I wanted to focus on the three that was already up
I
here.
mean,
But
they're
okay,
kind
that
of
makes
already
sense.
doing what they should be doing to a certain extent.
Yes. I
Um,
again, I was just trying to focus on making it look the way it is because this was already written out. I guess I could copy and paste this for all the other colors. Uh,
sure. You can go to your HTML. Let's bring those bad boys in there. Let's create them and make sure that you have access to them.
oh, I don't remember what the colors were. Yellow, orange, random.
Yellow, orange, and green.
Okay.
Yeah, yellow, orange, and green.
Damn it. Ba, 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 ba.
Oh wait, Keegan, you're not muted. I don't care. Just so you don't say anything embarrassing.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, so we got yellow, green, and then we're finishing off orange. Cool. Make sure it's saved. If yours is anything like mine, I have to save it. All right, cool. So we got yellow, orange, and green. Let's go back to the JavaScript, right? So we have the first part done. We know for sure red, blue, and purple work, but we just added 3 new list items that they don't have any kind of event listener or a function, right? So let's go ahead and create those. For the sake of time, Dominic, copy and paste them.
I got you. I got you.
Only for the
Listen,
sake
you
of time.
wanted an example.
No, I agree. So I only want you to do it for the sake of time. For
I got
you
you, I got
guys, whenever you guys are coding this, although sure you might already have some pre-made code, don't copy and paste whenever you guys are practicing on your own, because you're taking away from the muscle memory, right? That time behind your keyboard is invaluable. But for now, just for the sake of the recording, make sure we get something here as an example. So yeah, so we got turn yellow, we got green, we got orange. And next is creating individual functions for them. It's missing a curly brace, yeah, to close it out.
I think there's one more. Right?
Yeah. And now let's make sure that these functions correspond to the respective one, right? We have term red, blue, and purple, but we want one specifically for yellow, green, and orange. Well, Dominic does this. Is there a way that we could possibly do this with less code?
Put it all into one function.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Continue, Dominic. It's okay. Oh, but yeah, we could probably do this in one function. We know that we can create functions that take arguments or parameters. That was the point of learning functions, is the fact that you're able to recycle code, right? You're able to recycle it and kind of structure it in a way that's more organized. So if you know, especially when writing code, if you know that there's something that you're going to be writing multiple times that you might need to use later, it's probably a very good idea that you create a function for it, right? It allows you to adhere to what we like to call the dry method, the don't repeat yourself, right? Everything that we do in coding, we typically try to stay with the do not repeat yourself. So, Dominic, why do you think it's not working right now? You tried to press the orange and the green, right? But it did something weird.
They changed to purple because I'm guessing because I copied it from that function, but
yeah, so the functions are created, but what happens after you declare a function? What do you have to do? How do you use the function? You have to call it, right?
yes,
What functions are turn yellow, green, and orange calling?
the purple one.
Yeah, the purple one, right? On lines 4, 5, and 6. The yellow, green, and orange still have the term purple function as the function they're going to run. Now the green one is giving you an error only because you misspelled it on line 24, I think. You have turn P green.
True.
Make sure you save it and let's give it a try. Turn green to yellow, turn purple. All right, so it's doing exactly what it's doing, what it should be doing, right? Cool. C says it's not working. There's one more button that we don't have. Go back to the PNG file. And it's the last one, which is a random button. So although it looks purple, it's not supposed to do purple. it's supposed to be a random one, right? Now, how could you create a random color button?
I guess for like the functions, if there's a for where you changing it to, is there like a random I don't know what they're called, element, I guess.
There is a random element, and because it's very confusing with JavaScript, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. It's gonna be in the chat.
Okay.
Copy and paste it from the Slack channel. I'm sorry, not the Slack channel. The Zoom channel. The Zoom chats in our call here. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I
can
know, but
minimize.
when you're sharing your screen, I don't know where my chat went. Oh,
Oh, my
there it is.
apologies. Okay,
No,
I
no,
was
you're
about to
good.
say.
I should know how to find these things.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So the random function is a little bit weird because I think it returns to you like a number between like one and like it's a decimal value, I think. So you have to do like some multiplication, if I remember correctly. I think it's a little weird. I don't use it often in JavaScript, but here we have that random method, right? So whenever you run line 32, it's going to ideally run a function, and we can test this out. I want you to put this inside of a variable, and we're going to console.log that variable. So I know you're new to JavaScript, so I mentioned it earlier. To declare a variable, use the let
Let.
keyword. Yeah, and then let's just call it random number. And then equal, right? And then right afterwards, I want you to console.log this. No.
Oh, you mean
Oh,
underneath?
I guess you could do that. You're not wrong. You could do that too.
Random number.
Random number, yeah. And then I want you to go to your browser. You're gonna open up the inspect tool. Make sure we can look at the console in there. And then I want you to run. Make sure you save your file and then refresh your page. You see there?
Two.
Yes, sir. Refresh it again. 5, 1, 3. Right. So every time this runs, it's giving you a random number. So now that you have access to a random number, let's go ahead and create a function. Right. I want you to create a function that changes the color of the background based on the number that we got.
Mm, oh, and then for this, we're gonna need another, what is it called? I'll get to it after this. So with the random number uh variable, or
So we have access to a random number.
mhm.
When should we grab a random number? When should your application generate a random
When it
number?
clicks a button, or
Yeah, probably when we click a button. So with that in mind, we might want to put the random number method inside of our function. So maybe moving line 32 inside of our function, right?
for this
30.
one, right?
Yeah, so we essentially want to grab this variable right here, right? Whenever this variable runs and creates a variable, that's what we want. We want random number. So this needs to be, we don't want to constantly log it. We want to generate it, right? The one that's generating the number is line 32 right here, right?
Okay.
So this function here needs to be in our inside of our function, right? You can quite literally just copy all of line 32 and then bring it inside of turn random number. Right? Make sure you add the curly brace at the very end. That's why it's getting an error. So whenever you click this function, it's going to run this line. It's going to generate a random number. Now, depending on the numbers we get, we might want to choose a color, right? If it's 1, we want to turn red. If it's blue, we want to turn I'm sorry, if it's 2, it's going to be blue. If it's 3, it'll be purple, right? And so on and so forth. So with that logic in mind, how can we check what the value of random number is? And depending what value it is, we do one thing or another.
If else statement, if one run function
Absolutely.
turn red.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know how to write that though. So
Okay. Yeah, so I'll walk you through it. So you're gonna start off with the if statement.
yes.
Now when we do if statements, you want to wrap it around parentheses, which is unlike Python. Python doesn't need this. But whenever you do stuff like this, you want to open it up in parentheses, and then here you're gonna do your condition check, right? If random number, right, is equal to, and then we check for 1.
That's 2 equals, right? Or
Yeah, correct. It's the same thing whenever we're trying to check if something is equal to another thing, then we use the 2 equal signs. So if it's equal to 1, now I want you to move outside of parentheses and then open up another set of curly braces. Press enter. This opens up the code block for the if statement, right? Unlike
okay.
Python that uses colons, we use curly braces. So within here, if it's equal to 1, I want it to turn red. So what function should we run if we want it to turn red?
Turn red function.
Absolutely, right? So then we run the turn red function in here.
Do I have to like type anything like run or execute? Just
No,
turn red.
Yeah, so you want to call the function very similar to how we do in Python, right? Just call
Okay.
the function and then make sure you open and close parentheses. Right. All right, cool. So that's the first if check. Let's go ahead and move down to an else statement. So after the purple curly braces, we're going to type in else space if. And then open up curly, yeah, there we go. Now let's check for 2. And you're going to keep doing this for the other colors, right?
Second one, blue.
I'm assuming the rest of you guys have been working on it as we've been covering it.
Yeah, I'm done with the functionality now.
All right, right on. The reason why I'm walking you through this, Dominic, as well, is it's a good learning point for those people that haven't covered JavaScript, because I know we all started different,
Sure.
right? And it's tough. I want to make sure that we all understand how this works, because your first week, JavaScript, and it's straight to object-oriented programming with Python. So purple, yeah, good job. Yeah, definitely copy paste the purple and then do the yellow, green, and orange ones.
Oh, up somewhere.
It's unindented, yeah. Press backspace.
Yeah, I see it now.
Not too much.
Oh, this one.
Just do one more color afterwards. You do the else here. Do else, and then instead of parentheses, you start curly braces here. Yeah. Press enter after you open the curly braces up, and then you're just gonna call. Let's do green here. And then let's change. Make sure you add another curly brace right here that you're missing to close off the function. And then change
To a function.
make one for yellow. Awesome. I think this should work. I want you to save this. And now we need a button to run this one. Right, we have no random buttons. So let's go back to the HTML and actually add like a random selection.
Oh,
Random. Got to random. Now we have the list item. What's the next step to make sure this is connected?
oh. It needs
Yeah,
to
an event
DOM
listener.
to.
Absolutely. We need to create an event listener for this. So just copy and paste line 6. Then we change the element we're grabbing to turn random, and we make sure that we run the turn random function here. And I think this should work. Save this.
Just make sure I do rename it correctly.
You can remove line
Sorry.
34 and 35. Get them out of the way. Save the JavaScript and let's try it out.
Didn't we need that? Oh, never mind, never mind. We copied it. Yeah.
Press the random again. Keep pressing random. Yep.
I guess
Awesome.
it keeps giving me the same colors.
But we only have 5 colors. That's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Do I have any questions, guys, about JavaScript and working with a DOM?
I'm assuming there's like you can set up a bunch of functions under like an event listener by itself, like it's waiting for an event to happen on the screen, and based on where that'll trigger the function. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? Like there's a bunch of functions on there's like one function on standby, and based on where you click, it'll go to a separate function embedded with it. I don't know if I worded that right or not.
I'm a little confused.
Okay, so um I can share my screen real quick.
Sure, Dominic. Thank you for
Yep.
for volunteering. Really appreciate it.
So basically, what I'm asking is, say we got all of our functions defined. Cool. Well, what I want to do here, I assume, is I would define a function that listens for event. So either it's just listening for a click or a highlight or something. And whenever that happens on the screen, whenever that clicks on the screen, it can go through here and start looking for the function it corresponds with.
I see what you mean. You're essentially trying to say, can we create a function? Well, you have to.
instead of having like all of these where it's like wait for this, wait for this, wait for this. I'm just trying to compact it a little bit more.
And what event would that be?
So
Like, what do you want your browser or for your website to do, or it's going to do something?
I would just like to have all this in one area. So have one function called when the script is read. It listens for an event, and based on where that event is, it'll just trigger these whichever function happens. Because I
Yeah.
feel my only concern is I feel like this right here, and maybe that's just the nature of the beast. This is going to get really obnoxious really fast if I have an event for every little thing that happens. And if that's the nature of the beast, that's the way it is.
Right. Okay, I see what you're getting at. That it kind of really is, right? So there's only certain things that you're actually listening for. You know, if it's a button, then when you create the button, it should have that kind of function in there. Um, what we it typically goes into, we create a file called utilities, right?
Okay.
Where utilities typically have like everything that I needed to do. And yeah, quite literally, you might have a long file that has multiple different functions that do different things. Um, but this line of code, you could have compacted this significantly, right? Uh, you could have easily reused these functions and create this in a much better manner um, than what this is. For example, you could have uh, go back
Hold.
up to go back up.
Okay.
You could have make sure that all of these have a similar a similar class, right? So it could be like color, right? Color class, right?
Okay.
But whenever it runs the events, the function is going to check what the ID is, right? And maybe each color has a very unique ID. One has red, one has blue, one has orange, right? So the same function will be able to be given to multiple different elements, but the function is going to check the ID and it's going to use the ID to do one thing or another. So you could have compacted this significantly, um, a lot better than what this is. So
Okay.
there's better ways of reusing this than multiple functions one by one, right? You could have,
Yeah.
I think you could do query selector all. Type it in there, document dot
There. Oh, hang on.
query selector all. There you go. Right. I think that returns to you a list of every single individual item, and you can give them an event listener. So there's much more efficient ways of doing this here, and absolutely.
Okay.
Right. So you can still reach a similar outcome that you're kind of asking for here. But we're not doing it that way because I want to make sure that you guys understand how this is done. Right. For example, like it could be very difficult to wrap your around how we're using JavaScript to manipulate a different language if you're not used to it, especially when you've only been coding for like 3 weeks. So,
Oh, absolutely. And I'm
right.
still trying to get my feet wet with JavaScript too, because it's just ugly Java in my mind.
Yeah. And to be honest, when you work with React, I don't think you were here. Let me go ahead. Well, first and foremost, before we continue the conversation, that's not going to be complete or everything for today. Let me just discuss what is going to be your homework if you want to get ahead of it. But we will cover it tomorrow. We'll have some time to work on it. Actually, tomorrow's the weekend, so I'm going to give you the homework actually, so you have something to work on. So we'll continue this conversation in a little bit, Keegan, because I want to talk to you more about it.
Okay.
But I don't want to hold off the class, and I want to make sure we all understand what we're about to do. So let's put a pause on that, and I'll get right back to you. Sounds good? I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So we just covered the background colors. And for those of you who want to get more practice with CSS, I know it's nothing too difficult, but definitely kind of come back here and continue the color changer, right? Try to make sure that it looks like this. You can definitely do that. So this will give you a little bit more practice with working with some CSS, especially if for those of you like, the dominant that might not feel too comfortable. Try it out, finish it off, make sure it's complete. Once you guys are finished with background colors this weekend, the next thing that we're going to talk about is going to be the bad calculator, right? So we're able to change styles, right? But we also are able to change more than just the style aspect or the physical aspect of it. We can change the actual text or element within our elements, right? And here's a prime example. We are grabbing different elements by their IDs, and we're adding an event listener that listens to click, right? This is going to tie into our next exercise, but what I want you to notice here is that we have two functions, right? One is called make zero. And when they call the make zero function, it's going to grab some kind of element and it's going to manipulate its inner text and set it to a variable, right? And it does this for both of these functions. This is demonstrated here. This is what we call a bad calculator, right? It does some kind of math, but it does it really bad. The function that you just saw here that is changing the inner text is going to manipulate this result, right? This is what it's manipulating. The div with this text of results. Whenever we click on these, what it's doing, it is manipulating the result and changing its inner text to whatever number, right? Let's look at what the code's doing to make a little bit more sense out of it. This is a bad calculator JS file. Whenever we click on add 9, it's going to add 9 to the total. The total was declared right here at the very top of the file, right? Let total equal to 0. Whenever we click on one of the buttons, whether it's the make 0, let me open this up here. Side by side. There we go. Which one has make 0? That's the pumpkin ID, right? So a 0 will set it to 0, right? It's going to set the total to 0. The add 3, it quite literally does that. It grabs the current total, it adds 3 to it, and then reassigns the variable of total back to the new value. And then it uses that total to manipulate an element with the place to put result ID. And that is, as you see here, it is a H2 element with the text of result. And then inside it has the span that should be adding the inner text, right? So it's manipulating that span essentially, because it's actually not manipulating the H2, it's manipulating the span because that's the one that has the ID. It's adding the total into its content. So what your goal is, you're going to take this bad calculator and make it something that represents an actual calculator, right? This should be your outcome by the end of this weekend, right? Now, let's say you struggle really much with this. I don't expect it to look like this, but what I would like for you guys to at least do is get the functionality working, right? So you're going to revamp this calculator and turn it to a working calculator using everything that you have learned, HTML, CSS, and now that you are able to use functions to actually do stuff. I want you to create divs that have text like the 3, the 2, and then when you press it, it does some kind of math and then manipulates a different element, like maybe a div for the results that's over here, and adds the actual value in there. right? This is gonna be your challenge for this weekend. And then come Monday, we'll take a volunteer to see who was able to get it working. Now, tips. How do I work this, Roger? I don't even know where to begin. The first thing I would do is that if I was approaching this problem, is I would probably get something on my screen, right? I might want to create the basic layout of my web page. So first and foremost, I would create a div, center it on my web page, so it looks something like this, right? And then I would probably create two other divs. One is going to hold my buttons, and the other one can hold my results, right? And we already talked about how we can create boxes and format them, right? We did an exercise about it using the layouts, right? So I'll have two boxes. One will probably take maybe like 20% of my height or 30% of my height of my container, while the other one takes the remainder. This will be my buttons. Let's look at how it looks like. Probably the next aspect of this might be something like, I might create two other divs in here. Right? This div will specifically handle the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, right? So this div, I'll put it at the very end, and then this one will have 4 divs inside of it. I'll use Flexbox to orient them as columns instead of like all being in a row, right? This is how I'm thinking about it when I'm setting this up. How am I going to organize this? And then the other one might be, this one might be a little tricky, but it might have to be like 2 divs, one here and one here. This one's gonna have 3 other divs in a row, while this one has 3 divs taking the 100% of the width and only about 33% of the height each, so they all have their spacing, and these themselves have other divs inside, right? This is kind of how the HTML will end up being like. These are all divs, right? And I know it doesn't look pretty because you can see the border of all these divs, right? But if you didn't have a border, it should represent something fairly similar to this, right? Or at least make the border a lot thinner. I would tackle addition and subtraction first. Don't even jump straight into multiplication and division. Tackle a very simple problem, do the sum, right? And we already know how to do sum. We saw it in guide application, right? Sum, probably the easiest thing. Get 2 different values, add them together, right? After you create the sum, you update the display. The difficult part that might confuse you guys is how do I continue to add more arithmetic in here, right? After I add something, I need to create some kind of constant to save my value here. And then depending if I press the equal sign, will determine if I complete the operation and give you the result, or if I continue to add other operators, it should take the current value within my display and continue to add more math to it, right? So it should be a nice challenge. Andy said an array. Maybe. I'm gonna leave it up to you guys, right? But now you're starting to use your actual coding knowledge to actually start manipulating your websites, right? And making stuff work. This is pretty much how JavaScript ties in to your front end, working with CSS and HTML, right? So this is a pretty common first project for people in coding. So that a calculator is pretty typical. Also to-do list, which we will do. But yeah, this is gonna be your challenge. I will be available for the weekend. Not maybe all day, but like, if you hit me up and you want to talk for about an hour, I'm game, right? Just hit me up, and if you want to schedule some time, because usually what I'll probably be doing is either working or playing video games. So I'm typically in front of my computer. So if you guys have questions, hit me up. I have no issue jumping on a call and we can talk through this. So this is gonna be y'all assignment for the weekend, right? And keep it at this. All right. Try not to advance too much. Really try to hone your skills on a bad calculator before you advance. To be fair, the next one is gonna be freaking cake compared to this one. So this one it's gonna be where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck on working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all in one. Try your best once you work on the functionality to really get it looking like this. But all right, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. It was good seeing you. But that's going to conclude today's class. We will finish off this on Monday. When Monday comes along, we'll take 30 minutes to 45 minutes. We'll get a demonstration for somebody. If anyone wants to walk through anything that they might have encountered during the weekend, we can definitely do that. Then we will finish off day of the week. Following that, we should have enough time to jump straight into APIs. So that would be pretty cool. So I'll show you guys how we're going to talk to APIs and then use APIs for our web application. Do I have any questions? Awesome. Well, that's going to conclude today's class. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.